I had my dad with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma going through cancer treatment, driving him back and forth. My mom's in the hospital, shot. And then here's my husband with an addiction to painkillers. And then I have all these kids at home, one with cerebral palsy, a brand new baby, all this other stuff going on at home. So I'm trying to handle all of that. So I just kept praying and saying, I need help. I can't do this alone. And that's when God answered my prayers. And he gave me strength. And something overcame me to give me so much power and strength to know exactly what to do and how to do it. It wasn't coming from a book. It wasn't coming from advice from somebody. It came from him. My name is Lisa Sinagiani, and this is my true story. I'd like to start probably when I was a child. My mom was a fallen away Catholic because she was beat by nuns and really didn't want to have a Bible in the house, didn't want to take us to church. Didn't want to teach us about anything that had to do with God. So I really longed for it, and I didn't know how to get to it. I had found out about a youth group down the street that were teaching about God and having Bible studies. So I used to lie and say I'd go to my friends and go down there to learn, because that was my only way I could learn about him. And instead of imaginary friend, I had God. And I always talked to him, and he would pull me closer, and I'd have dreams about him. And getting that little tiny taste of him through the youth group was amazing. And that's where I felt my peace and comfort all the time. No matter what was going on in our lives, my dad was in the military and went to war 3 times. So having him gone and having my mom there, I always was able to turn to him. And he comforted me. And as I got older and I got married at a really young age to my first husband at 18, we didn't really attend church. But I brought my daughters to church, and they were in a Awanas club, and I wanted them to learn. And if they asked me, I wouldn't hold back at all. But I couldn't teach them if I didn't even know myself. But I told them that about God, and they went to Awanas. They really loved it. And I wanted to educate them, but I couldn't find a church for myself that I felt at home with. And especially because you feel intimidated. When you go to church, you think you have to be perfect. And you think that you can't be a sinner, or you can't lie, or you have to be this holier than thou person. And I didn't realize that, to me, church is a hospital. It's for the broken. And everybody's broken in church. And I think that's what drew me to the church I'm at now, is I felt like I belonged there. It was home. And everybody was broken, and everybody had a story. And I just felt comfortable saying, wow, I don't have to be perfect. I don't have to be holier than thou. I don't have to know the Bible and all the verses, because I didn't, not at all. But I knew my faith was strong. And even as a teenager, I wanted to do good. I did sin. I always sin. I'm a sinner, and I asked for forgiveness. But I didn't know that God would forgive you completely for everything you do, as long as you follow him and you believe in him. And I think that was a huge relief for me as an adult, knowing that. My first marriage ended in divorce. I had 3 kids. I lived on my own as a single mom. That ended because of an affair and some other things. And I kind of lost my way with God for a little bit. I knew he was there, but I didn't turn to him as much because I was so busy in my own trauma in my own head that I didn't reach out to him, and I probably should have, because I think that would have probably helped me through all of this, but I didn't realize it at the time. So I just was living in my own trauma, my own anxiety, my own stress, fear, a lot of fear. So I went through the divorce with him, lived with 3 girls on my own, went to nursing school, struggled through all of that because I didn't have a lot of money. I didn't have the help that I probably needed. And I met my now husband, Mike, during that time, and didn't realize that he came with his own set of issues. Alcoholism, and I thought he had beat that for some reason. I thought he was strong and got over drinking, and he just substituted that with painkillers. He was trying to cover his trauma from the war of Iraq, and he was drowning himself in painkillers, and he became an addict, and it was horrible.
At what point in that process was the realization that you couldn't really do this alone, that this wasn't something within your control?
It took a long time. It took years, I tried on my own, and I fought with him, with his addiction, and I became a codependent because I didn't know how to get help. I was ashamed and couldn't tell my family. So I hid it all. And I had kids. We had 6 kids together combined. We had his, mine, and ours, and his son had cerebral palsy, and I just had a baby, and it was just so many traumatic things that went on as soon as he became a full-blown, what I would say, an addict. You're always an addict, but when I really found out was probably when my mom got shot by my dad accidentally. My dad had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. He was going through cancer treatment, and they had him on chemo and radiation and all that, and what you call chemo brain. And there was a burglar in his backyard the night before, and he loaded a .22 that he had confiscated in Vietnam. It was a rat tunnel gun with no trigger guard. It accidentally hit the quilt, and it went off, and it shot her. And it ricocheted through her lower left abdomen, and it went right by her spine, and it spiraled throughout her body. And she didn't die right away. She went out into the living room, and she went into a coma for about 10 days. And she stayed in the hospital, and she finally came out of it, and she was doing really well. And she got shot in February. I had my baby in December. And so I had a baby, had 4 other kids at home. He's in his full-blown addiction. I wasn't paying 100% attention to it because I had my dad with Hodgkin's, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, going through cancer treatment, driving him back and forth. My mom's in the hospital, shot. And then here's my husband with an addiction to painkillers. And then I have all these kids at home, one with cerebral palsy, a brand new baby, all this other stuff going on at home. So I'm trying to handle all of that. That's why I didn't go to my family. How could I tell them when, my mom's shot? I'm going to go tell them, oh, my husband's an addict on top of everything else. Let's add that to the pile. So I thought I could handle it alone. Did I pray? Yes, I prayed. I prayed a lot. I never asked once why God did this. Never. I don't know where that came from, but I didn't. And then came after a while, I realized that my husband's addiction was bad, and he was stealing money from our accounts. He was leaving for days at a time, couldn't find him, and me and the kids would get in the car and look for him. He'd be at a hotel somewhere doing his drugs. He was lying to me, taking money out of our safe, out of our savings account. He was taking pills and replacing the pain meds that he had in the house that I was keeping control of, and replacing them with ibuprofen that were in the safe. Just lie after lie after lie. And he started cheating. And so there was affairs. And I had to get strong. And I was so weak at the time. I didn't know what to do. So I just kept praying and saying, I need help. I can't do this alone. And that's when God answered my prayers. And he gave me strength. And he said to give it to him, to put it at his feet. So I did. And something overcame me to give me so much power and strength to know exactly what to do and how to do it. It wasn't coming from a book. It wasn't coming from advice from somebody. It came from him. And he told me that I had to set real strong boundaries with him and give him an ultimatum, and to stop being a codependent. And so I did. And I actually took a trip up to my oldest daughter because she moved out, and I went to go visit her with my other kids, and on that trip, something changed. He gave me that strength to talk to him when I came back. And he actually came to me, and it was crazy because he came up to me and he said, Lisa, we need to talk. Let the kids stay home. I just got into the door, suitcases got put down, and he was like, let's go for a walk and talk. And that's when he was going to tell me he was still addicted and all this stuff, and the lies would stop. And I just looked at him and I said, I already know. I know everything. You can stop lying, you can stop hiding, but you need to go get help. And if you don't, then you need to leave, because I can't stay with you anymore. I can't let the kids go through what we're going through. I couldn't go through what I was going through anymore. And if he didn't get help, then our marriage was over. So he did. He went to rehab. And then they actually kept him there on a 5160 because the psychiatrist said he wasn't ready to be released yet. He was still not good to go home. And I said, well, I don't even know if I want him home at that point, because I want him to be healthy and not 100% cured, but I want to have something in place like treatment after, therapist after, NA after. I needed to have all that in place before I'd let him back. And all of that actually was in place before he came back. But it wasn't perfect. He was going to NA. He was going to see a therapist. But I think he was still using a little bit. And I found a burner phone with some messages to other women. And I actually contacted those women, and they talked to me and didn't know that he had 6 kids, didn't know he was married. And it was an emotional affair. And that was enough for me. To me, that's an affair. That's worse to me. Have an emotional affair means you're attached to that person. So confronted him about that. He got clean, thank God. Then my mom passed away. God told me to go to the funeral home and find a spot for her in a casket. And that was on a Sunday. And she didn't die until 6:28 the next morning. And during that time, my eldest brother suddenly passed away. He fell off the toilet and died. He was 59 years old. He had HIV. Never knew it until I got the death certificate and found out for 14 years he had it and never came forward with it. So that was hard. My one daughter has MS. My other daughter got lupus. So we've been battling with that myself with my own illnesses because I have Hashimoto's. I've dealt with that it's been 6 years now. Gained about 80 pounds when I first got it. Lost a lot of hair. Had cold and heat intolerance. Chronic fatigue syndrome. I can name 50 different symptoms from it. But God was always present in my life. And I didn't go to church, but he always talked to me. And I don't mean like some people say they have an audible voice. I've had that one time with him. Most of the time it was just thoughts in my head, or it was him, which I like to call God nudges. He'd push me in a direction. And if I didn't listen, it wouldn't be just a push. It would be a really huge shove. So I knew that those things were God. It was crazy what happened when my dad passed away. The day my dad passed away, he had been in the hospital, had been sick. They brought him home, and he was doing pretty good at home. And God came to me and he talked to me. This is the only time I heard a voice. And he said, prepare him for death. And I said, my dad? And he said, yes. And I said, okay, I'll do it. So I thought, okay, I'm going to let him die with dignity, love, and independence. We put on the 3 tenors because he loved that song. And I put my head on his chest, and as soon as the music ended, he took his last breath. And the feeling of Jesus being in the room, and I just felt this joy come over me. And it wasn't sadness, it was an awe. It was an awe that he was there, and I knew where he was going. And I felt like I lifted up with him. And then when he took him, I just came back down, and it was just an audible gasp. And the caregiver, Patty's sister, was there, the Hispanic one, and she was saying, Jesus, oh, Jesus, Jesus. And I know she felt it too. My husband felt it. And we knew he was in there and he was going to heaven. So I was so happy for him. Just like right now, I'm so happy. And when people ask, that's how I knew there was a God, even without going to church. I knew there was. And I really just didn't know how to worship him. We went to church here at our first church we picked to try out. It was Easter and it was super crowded, and My husband and I looked at each other and said, I hope it's not this crowded all the time. Let's give it another week and we'll come back, because this is crazy. And we had tried other churches, but they were so big that we got lost in the system. And we felt like if we didn't go on a Sunday, they wouldn't even notice. Well, this church would. And so we came back the next week and we were home. It was it. We knew we were home. We got greeted by people. They loved on us. They made us feel like we were welcome and that they cared. And I never felt that before. And I knew, finally, I'm home. So I would tell anybody to go to church and keep trying, don't give up. And if you feel that calling, it's real. It's not something you can deny. I have chronic anxiety problems and panic attacks. I've gone to the hospital twice thinking that I was having a heart attack, and sometimes being a nurse is worse than being a layman because you know too much. The anxiety, I got a really good therapist, Dr. Harold Brown, and he also used to run all the churches in San Diego, and he's really helped me come to Jesus a lot. Then this church is amazing. This church, I got so excited coming to this church and finding out about God and knowing His word, that we joined a life group. I became a women's leader in Bloom. Anytime we can volunteer, we volunteer. We've made sausages in our Taekwondo outfits because we're also Taekwondo instructors, and we'll do anything to help the church. Anything that we can glorify God's name, we want to do.
And just to bring fullness to your story, what happened with your husband's drug addiction and his rehab?
Okay.
And all that?
So he went to rehab. He got help. He went to NA. He also got a therapist, and he went to NA program. And all of those things combined, along with a lot of prayer, a lot of me having strong boundaries because I didn't before, I think that brought it full circle to have him get into a space where he was healing himself. And he's been clean. I think it's 9 years now. But I'm sure he deals with it every day. And I deal with the PTSD from it every day too. But I know that God has him now, and he had brain surgery and had a tumor. And during that time, I was totally calm. I knew God had him in his hands. And even the doctors were amazed. They were like, there's something else here that happened. And we can't even explain it, but it was a miracle that he came out the way he did. So I know we owe it all to God. And anything I can do to glorify his name, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. It's like having a cure to cancer. You're going to shout it from the rooftops. I got a cure to everlasting life and no death. And it's God.
And where was that, or what did it feel like to transition really from feeling God, knowing he's there, kind of having him in your life at these various points, to really having that relationship with him where you knew him more and where you had more of those things explained to you?
It was like having a puzzle with some pieces that fell under the couch, and you're looking for them constantly and you can't find them. And then finally you move the couch and you find them and you go, that's where they've been. Those pieces are here. And it all put together. And now I'm like a sponge. I want to learn. I want to hear everybody's testimony. I want to hear every single thing I can do. If I miss church because we're traveling or something, I got to watch it on the sermon on the videos. I got to watch everything. I have daily doses every day. I have a Bible app. I have my Bible with me. To me, the Bible is the knowledge book of life. And you can look up anything you need. You want anxiety problems? Boom, it's right there. You got anything that you need, it's in the Bible. So it's amazing. It really is. And the more that I read it, the more I'm learning. And no, I'm not comprehending everything. And I have a lot of questions. I do so many questions. But he fills in the blanks. He really does. And my anxiety is almost zero. And it's not drugs. I don't take any medication for it at all. It's all God. Once I put it at his feet and I say, I'm letting go and let God, he takes it. He really does. And he gives you a peace that I can sleep at night because of it. It's amazing. It just overcomes you. And it's wonderful.
That's awesome. And what would you say to somebody who's, maybe at that point in their marriage or in their life where they're thinking along very codependent lines and maybe trying to keep control of the situations or trying to go it alone. How do they get out of that?
Reach out for help. Don't be stupid like me and think that you got it all and you can handle it all, because it affects your health later on and you can't do it. You need help. You need to get a community around you. You need a church. You need therapy. You need everything that you can grasp onto. Read books, watch programs on TV. There's so many things out there to help. There's resources. Get help. Ask for it. Don't be ashamed. Don't be afraid, no matter what's going on in your life. Whether your mom's dying, your dad's dying, your husband's an addict all at the same time. You got babies, you got kids going through their diseases, you're going through your own. Get help, because people have answers for you. And pray and get to know God, because all of that's going to help. It will surround you with the things that you need. Even spouses can go to NA. I went with my husband to a couple meetings. I'm like, let me see what this is about. And they don't like to talk about it, but they say it's a higher source, but they're talking about God in there. They are. They really are. And so I know I feel safe with him going there because he is receiving God at all times, and they pray together. So that's a great thing. And have strong boundaries, really strong boundaries. Make yourself important enough to know that you matter. Don't get lost, because I think that I always felt like I didn't matter. My voice didn't matter. I was never heard. But I do. I matter to him. If to nobody else, to him.
And what kind of boundaries would you set, just to give an example, I guess, to somebody who's going through that?
Boundaries would be, to me, setting a boundary would be like an ultimatum. Telling them, go get help. You need help. And if you don't get help, this is going to happen. And stick to those. Be strong and have a support system. Say, yeah, we'll back you up. Have a plan. Put money away if you have to. Keep your kids as sheltered as you can from it so they're not damaged, because that was one thing I wasn't able to do. I couldn't even protect myself as much. And I really, really, really took a long time for me to forgive myself for that. So I got rebaptized in October, and God forgave me, so I forgive me, because he is the ultimate person that has to forgive me. And as long as I know he forgives me, I forgive me.
When somebody's really searching for God and coming to know God, where should they look? What kind of attitude should they have, in your opinion?
Humble. Be very humble. It's okay if you don't know it all. It's okay if you don't know anything, because I came just walking in when they asked me to be a balloon leader for a ladies group. I looked at her like I was crazy. I said, you want me? I don't know the Bible. I don't know verses. I don't know anything. And she looked at me and she goes, that's exactly what we need. Do have faith. Just even enough as a mustard seed, like they say, is enough faith. And I think I have a couple mustard seeds, at least. And I think that faith, just knowing he's there, and don't give up searching. Don't give up searching for him, because he will open doors for you to get to him. He will open doors, and things will fall into place as long as you follow him and you listen to him. They will, and it's amazing. Amazing. And the joy you find when you finally find him, it surpasses everything. I've never drank, I never do drugs, because I got God. I'm high on God. I really am, and now my husband's high on them too. So the drugs aren't needed.
And what was your journey like learning to forgive your husband?
That was hard at first. I was very angry at him because I had a lot of things to be angry about. Not only the lies with addiction, the stealing, the cheating, all of that I had to forgive him. And so I was super angry, but going through that process, I had to do a lot of soul searching myself, and knowing that this was an illness. It wasn't him personally. And I had to separate the two and know that he was sick. And in marriage, it's sickness or in health, and he was sick. And so I was going to do everything in my power to help him through it and forgive him. And once God showed me how, I asked him, and I forgave him. And it was hard. It didn't happen overnight. It wasn't something that it took years, but I keep chipping away at it and forgiving him. And he had to be willing to answer all the questions that I needed. as truthfully as he could. And as painful as they were and disgusting as they were, I needed the answers. And once I got those, that gave me a lot of closure. And therapy helped too, and once I got all the answers to everything I needed with that, then I was able to forgive him.
That's great. And how would you suggest that somebody who's dealing with somebody who's sinned against them, how can they forgive that person in their life?
I think that when you hold on to anger, resentment, hate, all of that, it eats at you. And I think a lot of that caused not only the stress, the trauma, and everything else that caused my Hashimoto's and my EBV to come up, but also the non-forgiveness of things. And I think to forgive somebody and how to let that go, it's a process. It's a process of getting to know you and humbling yourself and saying, you know what, I can't do this alone. I need help. And how do I forgive somebody that in your eyes might be unforgivable? But you have to remember that God's forgiven people, murderers, everything, as long as they've come to him and hand it to God and say, what do I do with this? How do I handle this? How do I forgive this man that has hurt me and my children so bad? But I knew he loved me. And as long as I had that little glimmer of hope saying that he still loved me and loved the kids and he wanted help, that God would guide me through it. And he did. Because this wasn't me. I couldn't do all this alone. No way. No way. I don't have that power or that strength. And I think once I really gave it all to God and just let it go, and I said, here you go, God. I can't do this anymore. I really can't. And that's what I did when I visited my daughter, and I gave it to him, and I said, I surrender. It's all yours. Tell me what to do and how to do this. And he did. It was like, what a relief to have that, to be able to put it on somebody else and let him take control of you and tell you what to do. Wow. Powerful. So powerful. Today is amazing. We've overcome so much and now we're best friends. We have that respect, mutual respect for each other since we've been through so much, and our marriage is stronger than it's ever been. And I think it's because we've surrendered to God, but we've also suffered so much. And I think in the suffering, you really come close to God. And I think that we're strong now. We are great family goals, coming and being able to go to church together. It just strengthens our relationship. It really does. So we have a great marriage and a great relationship, and we're best friends.
Can you close us out by praying for somebody that maybe was in your shoes and is still struggling with those things? Can you pray for that person as they're watching right now?
Sure. Heavenly Father, we come to you today. I'm humbling myself, asking you for forgiving my sins for today and in the past, and for protection around those that are hurting right now, that are going through what I went through. I'm asking you for a hedge of protection around all the women, the men, whoever's going through this, not only the husbands or wives of an addict, but the addict themselves. Put a hedge of protection around them. Give them the understanding that only you can give to them. Help them remain faithful to you, or if they're a first-time person praying in you, give them that strength and the knowledge that you're always there and that you're going to help them through these hard times as long as they turn to you. And that you'll give them the backbone and the strength to have those boundaries that they need to get through this, and the ability to reach out to people to help them. And I hope that they find the resources that they need. And I'm praying that, you can light up their world with your presence, and that everything that I do here today is to glorify your name and to help others. In your wonderful, amazing name, I pray this. Amen.
If you enjoyed watching this story, consider sharing it with 5 people who need to hear it. And if you want to take the next steps in your relationship with God, reach out to someone who can help, like a friend, family member, or pastor.